Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. What do you think about my haircut? Be nice in the comments because my new hairdresser is watching. We were talking about my channel, so I gave her a link. Thanks again, Kimberly. I think it's a cool look. Maybe I'll do no hats for a while because now my hair looks good. Anyway, wanted to wrap up the home entertainment show, do my wrap-up video like I normally do. And again, for those that are new to the channel, my style of coverage is a little bit unique in terms of I like to just stream of conscious almost everything that I do going into those rooms. I don't even watch these videos as I upload them from going into the room, but to give you real-time, raw experience of being there while the show's going on. And what I've heard from many of you, it actually helps you when you're there to navigate which rooms. And then for those that can't attend, it gives you a chance to feel like you're with me and get to meet some of the people that I meet, hear the behind the scenes. And again, in some of my videos, some of the best content isn't exactly when I walk in. You may have to bear through maybe songs you don't like or whatever until I can get the sweet spot or talk to the person at the end of the video. So unfortunately, I don't have time to watch every video, create chapters, and do all that kind of stuff while I'm out there. It's just not worth my time to do that. Again, I do this for free, guys. All those videos, another reason why nobody else copies, well, some started to copy what I do, but one of the reasons why is that I don't get any money when I upload these clips that have music clips in it. YouTube takes everything. And so many people that are doing this for money or for whatever reason don't want to give you guys the raw clips. That's why, because I get nothing out of it monetarily. And in some cases, it's even a pain in the butt because if they're playing a song, like in this case, for this show, Ozzy Osbourne was playing in one room, I uploaded the video, then turns out it got blocked totally. So, then a total waste of my time to even upload it. But this is my style of coverage. And then at the end of the video, the show, I will do this type of wrap up like I'm doing now, where I will talk about my favorites in more detail, give you some screenshots to remind you of what videos they were in. And then also I'll have a second video where I talk about the music clips. One of my subscribers is pretty faithful about every day shazamming all the clips that are in my videos, putting them in a playlist, and then I put it in Soundees and give you the links from Tidal and, Qobuz mainly, and also Tidal I think I can do. So stay tuned for that. Getting that out the way, let's start with my best of show. And one thing that I do, again, if you haven't watched my channel for a while, I have a video on what I look for in the shows and what you have to look for in the shows. It's not about going in, listening to whatever you heard and whatever seat you heard, coming out and making knee-jerk conclusions. It's much more sophisticated than that, as I've learned doing this many decades. It's a case of, are you in the sweet spot? Are they playing something you're familiar with? Are they playing at the right volume even? Is the noise floor loud? Is there bleed through from other rooms? There's so many variables that can impact your impression, so you don't want to make knee-jerk reactions. Now, are there some rooms that are beyond help? You could tell right off the bat, this is not your taste? Yeah, but those are kind of few, and if you've noticed, maybe 2 rooms in this entire show fit that bill, and I'm not going to reiterate those again. I like to focus on the positives. But if you're in the membership section, I do talk about that, some scuttlebutt, and other kind of stuff that you might find enjoyable. And again, I appreciate you guys that are doing super thanks and donations and stuff like that. But what I would encourage you to do is join the membership section. You hit subscribe and then you hit join for about a cup of coffee, less than a cup of coffee, $5. You can join and get access to my WhatsApp membership group where we have, I think, 40 plus people in there. Plus you get access to all these videos that I do talk about stuff that I don't put on the public channel. But that membership group alone on WhatsApp is well worth it. Experts in there. You saw my room with the Rex breaker panel. You want to know more details on that? Get in the WhatsApp group. Things that are going on even from Munich that I can't talk about just yet, get in the WhatsApp group. Tons of scuttlebutt and stuff, help that you can get. Even stuff being sold back and forth without having to go on AudioGone. So that's just a little plug real quick, something instead of super thanks, that might be a bigger value to you. At least it has been for all the members. But anyway, let's start giving out awards. And when I give out these awards, it's not just about sound quality, as I was intimating. Sometimes it's just something's memorable or something deserves the accolade of being something that stood out to me. And so one of the things I will start with, that it does have sound quality, is always going to be a benchmark. I have to check, it has to be there. But other things have to be there too. And so one of the awards I want to give to is Gryphon, because they did finally do audio clips and allowed you to hear it. And they went to that extra level of putting $30,000 worth of room treatments and a very comprehensive demo. Now, can a lot of people look at that as too pretentious, as too much, as, you know, a little bit true rigging things in your favor? Absolutely. I've actually been kind of against scripted demos for the large part, because sometimes if they're not playing what you like, then you got to sit there for 30 minutes or so. And in this case, one reason I want to give them props is that when I was waiting to go in, several people I saw come out before I even went in were saying, wow, that's great. And anecdotally, people were saying this was one of their favorite rooms. But on the flip side, while I was in there, I know there were a couple people that left in the middle. You know, either the sound didn't resonate with them, the music, or where they were off axis wasn't conducive. So there are going to be different pluses and minuses to this kind of demo. But I thought, I was listening to my own home system. They were very similar to my GR Research and Extremes, the presentation, the well-treated room, just a lot of things that were very similar, a high bar of performance that I thought deserves mentioning in an award. But on the flip side, another company I want to give an award to is one that does something like what you would see as a figure skater, doing things that are high difficulty. And that's what I really appreciate with them is Acora. They will put their speakers in any room, any place, the biggest of rooms. And even before they had their new reference speaker, they were putting their smaller models in massive rooms. They take on any challenge it is, like a difficult figure skater, and they deserve extra points for doing that. Playing anything you want, playing late night, and setting it up and getting the most from those speakers in these difficult rooms. And what I know firsthand, hearing them and also knowing people that own them in their home, these sound even better when you do put them in a dedicated room. But I love the fact that they will play anything, they do any kind of room, take on that challenge, let people come in and go as they please. And they did have a scripted, not a scripted demo per se, but they had Tone Poet, I think Joe Harley, come in there, do a presentation. So they do a little bit of everything, always high class. Val, great guy. So happy for him getting ARC. I am worried for him too. I hope it works out for him. But great guy. And when you know the people behind the brand as well, that's a big deal for me, especially if I'm spending a lot of money like these things cost. Definitely worthy of knowing the people behind it, and you can't get any better than Val and his wife. Had dinner with them. Quality people, quality company, quality product, and you've heard it many times if you're a long-time subscriber. I really like their stuff. So kudos to them. Another award for them for sure. Now, another room, I'm going to deviate a little bit on sound quality metrics or even difficulty and give an award for something else that stood out to me. And it was the Sunny Audio Room. I don't know if it's Sunny or Sunny, I apologize, whatever it is. But they had the CH Precision room and the Peak Consult speakers. And it wasn't so much that the sound quality was anything that was remarkable, but what I noticed in there, if you notice that DMAG device was really cool, tweaky thing. I don't know for sure if it worked or not. It seemed to work on that one album we tried it on in that video if you watch, no ticks and pops afterward. But that wasn't any of the things that stood out to me. What stood out to me in that room while I was in there, a gentleman brought his son in there, a young kid, and Sonny, the one that ran the room, allowed the kid to use that device. The kid was asking questions about that DMAG, and just embracing a young person, letting them do stuff. Yeah, they touched the album, whatever. All these things are not hoity-toity, one side of the coin that you kind of think people be so super hoity-toity and that kind of experience. And some people enjoy that, I understand. But also being real, raw, and engaging young people and not being so neurotic or so uptight. That stood out to me, showed a quality individual bonding with a new potential customer, maybe 10, 15, 20 years down the road. I thought that deserved mention and an award on metrics other than just sound quality. On that same level of not just sound quality, the Oriaco room, which I think was Tonian Labs at one point, he does these recordings that are really good. Now they're mostly bells and more special effects, so might not be everybody's taste. But last year, I think I recorded their room, but something got blocked and they didn't get any coverage, but they deserved it. So I want to give them a shout out this year. And also they were the ones that were playing their own impeccable recordings. But then he had the guts to put on Snoop. I guess he knows me and my, I'll listen to anything, including Cardi B and rap. He went from that to putting on a Snoop Dogg CD. Big props to that. Deserves a lot of credit. This is the kind of things I enjoy when I go to shows, playing anything, enjoying music, not being neurotic about is it showcasing at all times the very best of the speaker, because most people that are experienced audiophiles know that is not the key takeaway you want to do for these shows. You want to sniff the potential, you want to get to know the people behind it and feel good about the product on a design element and the people behind it, as I've said many times. To that same end, another speaker deserving of merit is the Steve Norbert's room, the Pranafidelity. That speaker looks like a normal box speaker with drivers and two front ports, but as you heard, if you watched all the way through, and we talk about the 850 layers of Baltic birch, how it's not a coffin, just a rectangular coffin. It's got subtle differences all around, and there's no veneer, and it's got dip switches on the back for different crossover points, roll-off points, and also different resistors and capacitors, I believe, that he uses to allow you, hey, if you can't hear a difference, then you can choose any switch you want. But instead of relying on the designer to make that choice, now you can choose, and if you can hear a difference, now you have some flavor embedded in that speaker and some form of quasi EQ with the roll-off. And then the port, even on the front, he can change the length of that port, which will change the tuning of the port, which again, this is how you would do DSP in a conventional sense. Giving you all that in that speaker is major props. Sometimes you go in these rooms, you don't hear about these things, you don't think to ask about these things, but I know Steve Norbert for many years. I know he does great stuff, great electronics too. And so I did share some of that. Yeah, so watch that video if you get a chance. Great guy, great product, something that maybe you didn't catch if you went into that room. Another thing you don't catch normally sometimes in these rooms is it's eye candy for the most part, but when you go into a room like the MCAudiotech with the Berning amp and SMC audio, Steve McCormick, who you've seen on my show many times, and Rick Brown does Hi-Fi One, he helped put together all the electronics. He's a distributor. If you want the best of the best gear, reach out to Hi-Fi One on the West Coast. He's pretty much got it all. And he does these Berning amps that are exceptional. Now, from a standpoint of visually, one tube, and you don't see these massive heat sinks, and it's not going to weigh 500 pounds when you pick it up. But let me tell you something. If you watch the video I did at his house, and maybe I'll link it in case you haven't watched it, it's well worth your watching, because the parts that went into that Berning amp, the meticulous attention to detail with the inductor, pure silver, just the metal, precious metal cost alone of that Epsilon inductor in a separate chassis, 50 pounds of almost all silver, and then even the pins for the tube holder, everything was just constructed with meticulous attention to details. That under the hood is where the eye candy is and where the design elements are with that room, and that is what you really want to learn about when you go to these shows. Learn more about what's under the hood. Anybody can put fancy heat sinks, huge chassis, make it weigh a fort, and some of them are really good when they do it, and it's legit. But in a lot of cases, it's mostly exterior, and inside is just traditional design. The Berning amp with that ZOTL circuit is unbelievable. How much you are able to drive with just 20 watts. And obviously those MCAudiotech speakers are much better than I think his previous iteration speaker was, and very innovative with the side venting of kind of a dipole. So it worked really well with only 20 watts. And so for a couple of my friends that are subscribers, they came up to me and said that was their favorite room. So give them a shout out on high quality design. That room though for me had a lot of bleed through from the other room and stuff like that. So on strictly sound quality alone, maybe some people may not have, although some evidently did get a really good impression. But that's gear you don't want to overlook, any of that stuff. SMC Audio, get Steve McCormick to design you a preamp that in a store would cost $50,000. If you have a contract with him, a lot less when you don't have to go through distributor and dealer markup. So I know one of my friends is already looking at that. My friend Doug has done that before, plenty before then. So a definite option that if you didn't notice and didn't know about, watch those videos to learn a little bit more, and my videos in the past with Steve. Another one that's always good at these shows is Linkwitz. And Michael, who I visited his home, and I'm going to have a video featuring the Linkwitz in his home. That was part of this visit. Killer video that I'm going to work on. But Linkwitz at the show was doing something I've never seen them do before. They put the Pass Labs amps in instead of their power boxes, which are the normal Class D amplification, which some people, they say, oh, I don't buy any speaker if I can't use my own amps or whatever I want. Okay, fair enough. That's why they did it this time with Pass and the Linkwitz. So you got to hear with other people's amps as well as with their amps on different days and see the performance level that's achieved with both. That room, they didn't raise the volume too much, Mike was telling me, because it was exciting some room issues. So in terms of excitement and pure sound quality value that maybe would wow you, just be cautious about making conclusions. It was still very smooth, detailed, just disappeared, didn't make you think you were listening to speakers. And these are all the things that are the big pluses of the Linkwitz. But it can jam too, they just weren't playing it loud. And those bass modules can definitely put out a lot of bass. Again, in a treated room, quality room, and you're going to hear some more tracks soon when I go to Michael's house and put out that video. So kudos to Linkwitz though, did a great job. Let's see, who else do we have? Lansche. They had two rooms. They had the Highend by Oz room, which, you know, as good as any room for getting a blanket award from me, because number one, the sound quality is always good. The quality of gear, top notch. The people behind it, top notch. It's super fun going in and hanging out with Greg and Oz, and really the best time to go to their rooms. I sometimes don't even go during the day. I go at night. That's when it's fun. It's packed at night, and people just know that's a good time playing real music on these mixtapes that Greg does. Tons of fun. People usually dancing, getting along, drinking, having a good time. That's what it's all about. Simulating the home performance at a show. They get the award all the time of doing that as good or better than anybody. And so the Lansche speakers, though, really sounded good, as always, in Oz's room. But what really stood out to me was in the Cake Audio room, the smaller ones. First of all, black and white finish, thumbs up. Secondly, they imaged so well on the vertical plane. I mentioned this in the video if you heard me. I'm not used to box speakers that can image floor to ceiling as well at that size point and that tweeter height and whatnot. Usually it's 2/3 and down with box speakers, and that kind of is a negative for me, a turn off for me, because I know I'm listening to speakers if it doesn't give me that true floor to ceiling dispersion and soundstage. But man, when they played St. James Infirmary, and they also played Fever, which on several metrics was as good as I've heard. It was a difficult room, lots of bleed through from behind, so not the best sound I've ever heard of those two songs per se, but in certain metrics I could sniff the potential of, yes, you put this in a dedicated quiet room, set it up properly with that plasma tweeter, you've got world-class potential sound. So thumbs up to those guys at Cake Audio. I don't know about that $4,500 tweak that goes on top. I mean, I didn't really get a $4,500 worth of difference. I could tell in limited auditioning, and then he's got a $7,500 EMI thing. I'm going to have a separate category for tweaks. I'll talk about in a minute. I just can't put that one in the bucket because I just didn't have enough experience, and that's just too much money, I think, for those tweaks. But good luck to him on that. Another brand that at this show always is one of my favorites and only really shows at this show, and it's PVN. And that's a brand that's underrated. It does everything from source, even vinyl, all the DACs, amplification, all the way to speakers. And we're talking about several types of speakers, from these huge cost no object ones that'll fill any room, play at any volume level, dynamics, power handling, low distortion. You want to create the scale of a real live performance, similar to like what the M9s do and other cost no object speakers do. Those PBNs are right up there. And we played a track that showed off the dynamics of it, as well as other ones that were more finesse oriented. And so regardless of what you like, that's a brand you ought to check out because they do the synergy for you. If you're the type that doesn't like to mix and match, you don't want to have to hassle with that, hey, one brand does everything, it does a synergy for you. PBN is definitely one to check out. Now let's start getting to some of my budget awards, because I like to showcase these megalith speakers, $700,000 speakers, $200,000, whatever. But reality is most of us don't buy those, okay? And most of you watching, even if you can afford them, sometimes you're scratching your head like, is it really worth it? And I'm with you there. So what are the other brands that, for real world, I always take a look at for you guys and like to showcase? And without question, Cabasse is always, for whatever price point, even cost no object, I love the Cabasse stuff. What they're doing with DSP, just aesthetics, everything quality, all the way down to that Rialto. I mean, if I was starting out, I would probably look at that and maybe a few other things, Source Points, Primaire, Cabasse. That's just easy recommendations for getting you immediately to the point of diminishing returns at a low budget level. You're going to have to spend a lot more to start getting a lot better. But another one that's an underrated brand is, and I featured them before, is Margules. And I had dinner with Julian from Margules. It's going to be at some point the rest of this year, we're going to coordinate me going down to Mexico City and touring his facility. But got to talk to him at dinner a lot more about his philosophy. He's actually sent me some new white papers he's done that I want to digest. But this is somebody that's much more advanced than the price points would suggest. Sometimes you have these guys that are just so enamored with price and think that price equals better quality. In a lot of cases, it just means better aesthetics, better pride of ownership, better bragging rights. We're talking about when you get Margules gear, you are getting some top-notch tube electronics that really have almost, you are definitely at the point of diminishing returns with their stuff. We've heard him many times with the Rido stuff. He has his own speakers too, and that's another reason why I'd like to go down there, see those speakers again, hear an entire Margules system. So before you buy anything new, if you like tube electronics especially, look at what Margules is offering in your price point or even below, and make sure that whatever you do buy is better than that at their lower price points, because in most cases it probably isn't. And they've got a power conditioner now that does DC blocking. They have a server now. So they are one of these companies out of nowhere really in the last 4 or 5 years, although they've been in business forever. But in terms of penetrating the US market and getting acclaim, at least from me, every time I see them, I love their stuff. I love their room. And they're the ones that brought up that Jazz Variants track that I've showcased in the past. And it's a great test track. So on every metric, I would think Margules would be another one of these mega dollar brands. So get it while you can at a much more affordable price, because the performance is there. Now, another budget brand that's been at the show now 2 years, Black Ocean Audio, young guy doing speakers. Got to give kudos to him. He did well his first year, he told me, selling speakers. They're well designed, the construction quality, the performance. What was so funny is that I did that video on the Songs of Silence, the Ghost of Johnny Cash cover, and he was playing it. I walk in, I was like, what are the odds of me walking in on this? He's like, I'm playing this because I watched your video and I love it on this system. And sure enough, it played just as good as the Rosso Fiorentino room in Dallas. Now, they're not exact same rooms. There's some differences and advantages, but he's doing a great job for only a second year around, young guy with those speakers. So cool guy, cool speakers. Check him out. Another one that deserves a lot of acclaim and surprised me when I first noticed them was Songer Audio with these field coils. Not something that I've ever had good success listening to, field coil speakers and single drivers that cover most of the frequency range. Usually turn out to be disasters in my book. And there were a few at this show that to me were disasters. But whatever he's doing here, the bespoke level of construction of these drivers that they do themselves, and the rear firing whizzer and the open baffle bass and just every little thing that he talks about in that video, the nuances that they pay attention to, again, show you it's not just about what type of driver or design philosophy, tube, solid state, whatever it is, box, open baffle. There's so many variables, and it almost always comes down to implementation and the passion of the person behind it and the value. And on a lot of those metrics, you've got a speaker here with Songer that deserves to be in the conversation with anybody looking for a speaker in those price points. So definitely, if you haven't heard them, try to hear them, and they're beautiful. And also, they're great at finding cool music. Always play stuff that's not the stereotypical norm. Great content. Kudos to them on that as well. Another room that in many respects wowed me out of the blue was Linn, and seeing their new speaker with DSP room treatment, which I think they were even talking, I caught it at the tail end, even takes into account the humidity in the room. I mean, this is like next level type of stuff. But doing all that active, and they abandoned the isobaric bass, but they were telling me about the new design that they've come out with, totally new for their bass loading, and that was a very impressive system for what it can do, all as a whole lifestyle. And the room was super cool. It transported you, kind of like the OMA did in Munich. If I was EQing it, I would have done a little bit differently with my EQ, but what you have with that speaker, like I've talked about with the Pranafidelity, albeit they don't use digital, but the ability to tailor it to your needs is exactly the type of things I would want. When you're spending that kind of money, you don't want to just rely on what it sounded like at the Linn facility in their perfect listening room and then try to get that same performance at your home. No, you're wasting money. If you can tailor certain things, tailor to your ear pinna, your taste, what you like, that to me is almost requirement, if you don't have that ability. And so with all one package, you get the electronics, DSP, speaker. To me, this is the future of audio. And it was performing extremely high level. And again, putting together that entire aesthetic that they did, transported you. It felt like you weren't at a show, you were at a listening room. Thumbs up to them. Another one that always has the aesthetic down pat is Estelon. Estelon with those beautiful purples. Well, I guess purple is not, it was, I can't think of the exact name, but beautiful black, but with that layer, the blackness behind that layer of purple just gave it that kind of a midnight purple, I forget the name anyway, but it was beautiful finish. And normally I would not be a fan of that. But anything that Estelon does is always done impeccable finish, and performance. With these drivers that they use, very difficult to sometimes use Accuton drivers that they use in many of their models. and get that to work right. And also base loading, the way they do it a little bit different. Cabinetry, as you heard in that video, they almost behave like open baffles because they have so little cabinet baffle near the tweeter that if you stand in front or behind, it's almost like you're listening to a Maggie in terms of front and behind, almost sounds the same. And so there's tons of advantages on top of the aesthetics with Estelons. And my friend is taking delivery of the Estelon Extreme Mark II. I hope to fly out and have a video view of that, because that speaker, man, with the movable MTM module, or not, it's not an MTM, but the movable mid-range and tweeter, as well as the tweeter distance that you can be adjusted. That again, showing high end, showing the ability to tailor it to your room or taste. This is what I look for if I'm going to be spending a ton of money. Something that's advancing the hobby, doing things on an advanced level, and not just the same old, same old. Now, another one that a traditional speaker design, but surprised me on the standpoint of, for the first time at a show, they really stood out to me, was Egglestonworks. And one of the things that I've been noticing now that I've had more and more experience with Egglestonworks is whatever they're doing with their bass and their ported bass, they're getting really good performance from it. Normally, I'm not a ported bass guy. I usually can tell, especially with certain materials, or you hear the port chuffing if you play too loud, or notes that are below that tuning of the port can cause issues. And just the general coloration of ported bass and these big speakers sometimes bothers me compared to other options. But one thing about Egglestonworks, they really have their bass down packed. Everything else is good too, but one of the hallmarks I'm now consistently getting with Egglestonworks is their bass. And they were playing a great song, had me captivated the whole time. So those kind of subliminal cues, I can't talk any better than that. If I'm staying in the room the entire song, enjoying the song and the performance of the equipment, that speaks volumes. So kudos to them. Now, two other things I want to give awards to are for tweaks. And if you heard, there was this Nemesis type room treatments that you could put whatever picture you want on these very advanced on-wall room treatments that aren't just rock wool insulation in a square box or a rectangular box that you could make yourself or buy relatively cheap. These are aesthetically great, and they were the first time they've used their banner for advertising their brands, but they were actually made of this material as well. Served as room treatments. Their marketing banners served as room treatments because they have this multi-layered, pretty sophisticated room treatment that would look great just on its own, whatever picture you want. In fact, go to the Morrison Gallery, take a picture like this. One person of the 27 Club, you can have panels made of each one, of each member of the 27 Club, have them create a panel, and you'd have the most badass listening room treatments ever. I mean, that's what I'd like to eventually replace mine with, is these guys' stuff, and have the 27 Club on each of those things. So you guys can beat me to the idea, but killer stuff. So thumbs up to them. The other tweak that I think deserves a lot of merit was Norman Varney's AV room service had these EVPs that are vibration control, and again, very important demo to watch for why decoupling, both in my experience and of course in his experience as well, and through experiments where he shows you why decoupling is so much better than coupling and even spikes. Again, I don't want to go into everything. Watch the demo. I'm going to have more when I see him in Pacific, because some people had follow-up questions, want a little more proof, want a little more information. Norman has seen the comments, and if he hasn't responded, he wants to do a video to address those comments even more so. Again, nothing's better than just talking. Anybody can write a comment. He was going to do a video to showcase and address any concerns that you have. So again, make sure you watch that video, because decoupling, in my experience, is much better than coupling for especially anything that's heavy with vibration controls, from speakers, turntables, and go down the list, tube-based electronics. not only improving the performance of the gear it's on, but reducing the vibrations that come into your room, make your room sing, make things rattle, all kinds of things that you can help mitigate. And why sometimes people prefer spikes, maybe because they are liking some of this resonance that isn't really that extra dB they're hearing and perceiving. It's just them not being in tune to the quality of what they're hearing. And so again, he goes into all that in detail. So take a look at that video. Big time tweak that doesn't cost a lot of money. All right, I think that covers everything. It wasn't the biggest show ever. Seattle Audio Fest is coming up next, so I got to go through the same routine. But stay tuned because I still have the music clips from this. I have Michael's visit. I have the inacoustic tour from Munich still. More parts of the Rhapsody audio tour from Lone Star. So much content. And then the breaker box. Guys, I got to sign off and get started. So subscribe, sign up for notifications, and I'll see you back here soon.